So what I wanted to talk to you today about is how to mix up a large quantity of opaque color. And this is something that a lot of people miss, and a lot of artists are, trying to get enough paint to really take them through a large painting, find themselves having to mix up and mix up and mix up the same color, when really you can mix up a lot of the same color and have it and store it in a container like this for, I don't know, I've stored mine for months. And so let me show you a little bit about how that works. The first thing you need is a container of water, and you need some kind of a plastic container that has a nice tight lid to it. So I love these soup containers that come with a plastic lid. I keep them all the time and recycle them and use them for my paints. In fact, mostly in my painting practice, I am always making paint in large quantities. So the next thing that you want to do is figure out what color you'd like to try and make. And so where do we get color ideas from? And I have a couple of quick suggestions, and that is especially if you're doing abstraction and you're not really referencing something in the outside world. For me, I like to look at color samples that either these are color samples from a paint company, rather from a hardware store, and I have this from my old art school days, a set of color aid colors, which are just beautiful, rich colors. The thing is, way more colors than I could possibly imagine on my own. And this is the key to it. So, left to our own imaginations, we might be very limited in terms of the kind of colors we might want to create. So I really find it helpful when you go to another source. Another great source is looking through magazines. Magazines' color swatches are great sources. So if you can't get to a hardware store, or you don't have access to a little color aid or Pantone box, something like that, then you can just go to a magazine and flip through and find interesting colors. The idea is not to go to the predictable red, blue, yellow, the traditional things, and kind of boring that way, right? So anyway, once you've decided on your colors, you're now going to have to figure out how to make that color. What I want to say first is that as you look at these colors and the color aid colors, they are opaque colors. In other words, they have all been started with a lot of white. And that's true when you go shopping for wall colors. You want to you repaint your wall or your house, you're looking at opaque colors. Most of the paints that Golden makes are transparent colors. So you now need to figure out how to make those colors behave more opaquely and in larger quantities. So especially if I'm trying to paint over something, I need to make my color opaque. So we need to start with a lot of white. And sometimes I start with plain old gesso, or sometimes I start with, this is titanium white, matte fluid version. So the matting agents in the fluid acrylics make my titanium white even more opaque than they might normally be. And this little gauge here on the back of the paint container tells you that on the scale between transparency and opaque, they're way up, and they can't get more opaque. On regular titanium paint, titanium white paint, it's opaque to a certain extent, but it's, I would say, it's not like gesso. Gesso also has matting agents in it. It's a little bit different than the regular paint. It's got chalk in it, which gives its matte look. All right, so I'm going to just take some of this white paint and I'm going to pour it into the container. I'm going to make a good amount of paint. By the way, you can extend this paint by adding a little bit of water or by adding medium to it. So you can add quite a bit of extender, up to 40%, to make more paint without diluting your color, without making it more transparent. So that's a great thing to know if you're trying to save money. I am going to skip that step right now, just because I'm trying to, I want to get right into the heart of the mixing thing for you. The other thing you're going to need is something like a paintbrush or a palette knife so that we can mix our colors once you've got them in your container. So I'm going to take a paintbrush right here and use that to mix my color, but you know, you can use really anything that you want to mix your colors up. And now I'm going to choose which color I'm going to try and make. So I am going to choose this color right here because it's a little off and because it's a little not a predictable color. It is a shade of green, but it's a tricky shade. You know, it's a little bit, you know, the words we might use to describe that green might be khaki, might be desaturated. In other words, it's a little on the grayed outside, right? But we'll try it. Actually, the paint company Benjamin Moore calls this color dill pickle, which really has nothing to do. Doesn't really look like a dill pickle to me, but anyway, we'll go with that. Actually, it's interesting how close it is to this color here that I've mixed, isn't it? So that's pretty fortunate because I can see right here what I need to make this color. It's a green yellow. So I'm going to actually, based on this color chart, go for a sort of warm yellow and an ultramarine blue, because I know that that's how I made these colors here. So how do you know which yellow to use? It's a really good question, because this is, you know, similar to what we have here. This paint color is actually made with a combination of two golden colors, diarylide yellow, which is really a nice, warm, sunny, egg yolky yellow, and benzimidazoline, which is more like a lemon yellow. So, but we're going to start with a yellow. I'm just going to turn this off for a second. Okay, I have the diarylide yellow right here to show you that, you know, it's this really sunny color. And this is the Hansa yellow, which has now been, the benzimidazoline yellow is taking its place because Golden has found that that benzo pigment is more light fast than the Hansa was, although this was quite light fast. So we're always, you know, trying to get better and better paint. And I've got my ultramarine. This is ultramarine in the high flow version. It's same pigments, is exactly the same pigment as these fluid versions. It's just a little bit thinner. So here we go on our adventure. So I'm going to start with adding just a little bit of my diarylide yellow. I'm going to pour a bit in here. And it's really hard for me to tell you exactly how much. But the pigments in the golden are so strong that, you know, not a lot of paint goes very, very far. So I've got maybe a teaspoon in there. I think I'm going to start with that. I'm going to mix it up. Actually, I'm going to use a palette knife, just because it's just a mess to try to wash your brushes off so frequently, and these wash off better. And so I'm just stirring that up really well. Nina, I may need more yellow. To be honest, I might need to add a little bit more. And so that's the color that we're going to try to get to. I'm going to put it over here, and then we're going to use this palette to check out our colors. So I'm going to maybe add just a little bit more paint to this. I'm going to put my brush in the water to stir it up a bit. As you can see, stirring that up. Get it, there you go. That's a much better amount of pigment. So that was about 2 teaspoons. And I would say that I have about half a cup of white paint in there. That sounds like I'm cooking. That's really funny. So there you go. And I'm just going to put a little bit of this yellow out on the paper here to see. Then I'm going to take a little tiny bit of our phthalo, because I do think the phthalo is the right blue. And so, you know, there are 2 blues, 2 reds, 2 green, 2 yellows rather, when you're trying to mix color. and which of those you mix together really makes a big difference. So if you look at this green here, I think this green is definitely toward the red. Why do I say that? Well, it's more like, it looks to me that it has more ultramarine blue in it than phthalo green, than phthalo blue, excuse me. So that makes me think that it is ultramarine. Ultramarine blue is more of a red blue. So we're going to just try this out and see how close I am before I add it to the paint that I've already got. Just going to put a little bit down there and see what happens. Going to take my brush. It's always a good idea to test and make sure that where you think you're going is the right direction here. So let's just take a little bit of that. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. Looks like I'm getting there. But let's see. Oh yeah, that's really pretty good. I'm thinking maybe of adding just a little bit of phthalo to it because it's a little bit too red to me. So let's do that. The phthalo blue is more of a blue that's toward the turquoise. And I'm just going to put a little bit of that down here too. Don't need much. You can see how very little paint I used to make that color. Just going to add a little bit of drop to it and see if that makes a difference. Yeah, pretty darn good. So when you mix your colors, it's going to be really hard to mix it absolutely perfectly. And to some extent, that's not necessarily the goal here. The goal here is to give you color ideas and to get you to really learn how to mix color. So let's do this. I'm going to just take some of this paint that I've already put out here and put it in my container. So I'm not going to waste it. And I'm going to just start. And I know that these paints, really go far away. So I'm going to just take them and start to mix and see how much more I need, because they really do start to change the color right away. Okay, we need more. So let me just do that. So you always want to add your colors to white. When you add your white to colors, chances are you're just going to get more of the same color. And the white just really doesn't do a whole lot. So I always start, if I'm trying to make a very opaque color, I start with my white. Sometimes you need to start all over again, and that's fine. I mean, that's just part of the beauty of learning about color mixing. I don't consider it wasting paint because likely you're going to be able to use it again. It's so you need a couple more drops here. I think it's not quite enough paint. So sometimes these lids get a little bit of paint stuck on the top. And there it goes. Yeah, still need, it looks like to me that I'm really going to need quite a bit more blue. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and mix that up. Okay, so I just kept adding some more of the phthalo and the ultramarine. In fact, there's no way to really tell how much you're going to need. You just really have to do it to play with it and see. And I think I've got a color that I feel pretty good about here. And you'll always know that acrylic colors will dry slightly darker. That's what happens because the water evaporates from the paint, and when the paint's wet, you're seeing a little bit of the white that is caused by the water reflecting off of the light, or rather the light reflecting off of the water molecules that are in the paint. So when that dries, you're left with a thin skin of the dried paint that's a little bit darker. So that's our color. It's actually better even than the one I mixed before. And that's how you will mix a nice big container of paint. This will last you, a couple weeks easily, and you're going to be able to really use your paint a nice, flat, consistent color over and over again.